Coming up, what's cooking in Oklahoma City? A new cookbook from a Pottawattami chef. And Hall of Famer Richard Trudell gives us a look into the Native American Hall of Fame. Plus, NASA engineer Aaron Yazzie has been inducted into Stanford University's Multicultural Hall of Fame. Join us for those interviews plus headlines ahead on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The ICT Newscast is sponsored by the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, a nonprofit organization serving American Indian nations and people in the recovery and control of their rightful homelands. On the web at iltf.org.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Trahant. We start today talking about the climate, and in particular, climate change. The 5th National Climate Assessment dropped this week. The comprehensive report, issued every 4 years, documents what it calls rapidly intensifying threats. And who gets hit hardest? Underserved communities, including tribal nations. The report says that climate change-related extreme weather events cost the U.S. $150 billion a year and has 3 messages for Native communities. The effects of the warming continue to hurt Indigenous people. Indigenous knowledge and leadership are leading many efforts to combat climate change. And what does the report conclude is central to Indigenous people's resilience to climate change? Well, the same answer that applies to most problems facing Indian country: self-determination, so that Native Americans can respond in ways that meet our needs. The report also says climate change now permeates Americans' daily lives with harms that are already far-reaching and worsening across every region of the United States. The report says the United States is warming about 60% faster than the world as a whole. Regularly, we get smacked with costly weather disasters, and we're facing even bigger future problems, including health inequities that hurt the poor and minorities the hardest. There's another fire burning in a remote Hawaiian rainforest, this time on the island of Oahu. The latest fires scorched mountain ridges, and the flames wiped out irreplaceable native forest land that's home to nearly 24 fragile species. And overall, the ingredients are the same as they were in Maui's historic town of Lahaina. Severe drought fueled by climate change is creating fire in Hawaii where it almost has never been before. A senior scientist and cultural advisor to the Nature Conservancy said the fact that this fire was on Oahu's wetter windward side is a red flag to all of us that there is change afoot. The fire mostly burnt inside the Oahu Forest National Wildlife Refuge, which is home to 22 species listed as endangered or threatened by the U.S. government. The challenges faced by Indigenous people around the world are often shared. For example, preserving languages. There are 62 languages spoken in India's state of Odisha. India is among the most linguistically diverse countries in the world, but its constitution officially recognizes only 22 of the hundreds of existing languages, and these are those taught in schools. The most recent census in that country won't even count languages spoken by fewer than 10,000 people. Since independent India's state borders were first redrawn along linguistic lines in 1956, certain languages with territorial majorities and scripts have gained social and political power. Indigenous languages, in contrast, have been marginalized along with those who speak them. According to Yes magazine, 400 of the 780 languages currently spoken in India are at risk of extinction over the next 50 years, and the ones most at risk are those used by Indigenous communities. Ganesh Devi is a literary scholar who started in 2010 and led a project called the People's Linguistic Survey of India. Over a period of 3 years, he and a team of 3,500 volunteers set out to document India's linguistic diversity that includes distinct cultural and oral histories. We stay international, reporting on how indigenous people in Kenya are facing forced relocation. The Kenyan government has begun widespread destruction of homes and property for the Ogiek people living in Mau Forest, despite a legal victory acknowledging ancestral lands in 2017. Demolition began in early November when the Kenyan Forest Service concluded the legal ruling did not permit housing, construction, or agricultural activities within the forest. According to Mongabe, the chief conservator of the forest says they are not specifically targeting indigenous people. However, about 700 Ogiek families have been forcibly evicted by the Kenyan Forest Service. A 2022 ruling by the African Court concluded that the Kenyan government should allow indigenous people to return to their land. President Biden has announced the next White House Tribal Summit. This year, it'll be on December 6th and 7th. The White House Tribal Nations Summit brings together leaders from 574 federally recognized tribes to talk about ways the federal government invests in indigenous communities. A statement from the White House said the summit will be chaired by the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, Senior Advisor to the President and Director of the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, Tom Perez, and White House Policy Advisor, Neera Tanden. The White House summits began in 2009 by then President Barack Obama. The idea of the gathering became a promise during Obama's visit to the Crow Nation in Montana in May 2008. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. The first American museum features of the tribes of Oklahoma and indigenous cuisine. Loretta Barrett Ogden is the chief at 39 Restaurant in the museum. Her new cookbook is called Corn Dance, Inspired First American Cuisine. ICT Shirley Snavy was there to see what's cooking. Take a look.
Oh, yeah! Wee! Oh, yo, eh! Oh, yo, eh! Oh, yo, eh! Oh, yo, eh! Hey, yeah! Hey, yeah! Hey, yeah! Hey, yeah!
Come see us at 39 at the First Americans Museum. The museum is stunning. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely worth seeing, and the food's pretty worth eating as well.
That's great.
Loretta Barrett Oden is the chef at 39 Restaurant.
I'm laughingly say I'm the Indian in the cupboard. So I try to keep them on track of, what food we're supposed to be cooking and serving here. I've been involved with this project for probably 17 years. This was kind of a stutter start. We'd get going and then, we'd shut down, but it finally is open. We opened in September of 21, so 39, which pays homage to the 39 tribes of Oklahoma. And so I'm trying to replicate what I did in Santa Fe. So doing First Americans cuisine, doing a lot of buffalo, venison, quail, a lot of veggie stuff. Our garden out there growing corn, beans, and squash, which is exciting. That's a program of TSET, the Tobacco Settlement Group called Shape Your Future. And so we're trying to get healthy food back on the tables for our people.
Loretta's new cookbook will introduce you to some of these dishes.
It's named after the Corn Dance Cafe in Santa Fe, where this all began. And so my first book signing is going to be in Santa Fe next week. So I'm really excited about that. So this is geared for the home cook. So they're pretty simple, straightforward recipes. And I think everyone will have fun. A lot of my story in there. So that's going to be fun too.
I asked Loretta what her inspiration was for cooking.
I guess growing up in Oklahoma, a big family. The Pottawattami side of my family, my mom was one of 9 kids. And I had grandmas and aunties. And so it had to do with, growing up in the kitchen, singing, laughing, cooking. That inspiration kind of carried through my life, raising my kids and all of that. And then I took a departure, left Oklahoma, and ended up in Santa Fe. And my eldest son, Clay, and I opened the Corn Dance Cafe. 3 favorite recipes. Well, it has to be the Three Sisters and Friends saute. So that's my one with corned beans, squash, quinoa, wild rice, really quick, easy saute. And then it's garnished with a sage pesto, really tasty. Everything that you can buy at your local grocery store. Hopefully you'll grow it yourself. That makes it that much better. And 3 top ones. We're doing a really good Santa Fe influence hominy stew. It's basically pozole, but we're in Oklahoma, so we're calling it hominy stew. So it's pretty, it's red and spicy, very tasty. We're doing that with bison meat rather than pork. And we're also doing a chicken green chili stew, which is pretty tasty. I'm doing corn ice cream, my flourless chocolate cake that I call Loretta's Obsession. With blackberry cobblers, some really good food going on here.
In Lincoln, Nebraska, Shirley Snavy, ICT News.
The first American museum not only hosts great food, but the National Native American Hall of Fame as well. 6 inductees were added to its rank recently to honor and tell their stories about how they have helped shape Indigenous America. The organization behind the Hall of Fame is also developing a comprehensive curriculum to share those stories with schools and young people. We talked to one of the inductees, Richard Trudell, about the work of the National Native Hall of Fame.
I had mentioned last night at the event that it's great that they are recognizing and celebrating extraordinary Native people. We are in just a whole range of disciplines, and I've said, and others have said it, we don't celebrate ourselves, good own will. But there's some amazing stories, and it's always enjoyable to meet people that've done different things. And obviously, this family are considered to be a candidate for being an inductee. It means you're up in age. You're not at the beginning of your career, you're kind of at the end of it. But I think the energy. I think learning about each other. Again, celebrating, people have done a variety of things, be it a movie, with law, with journalism, activism, what have you. It was really fun to be a part of. Honored to be one of the inductees this year, 2023.
Let's go through the list. Talk about Will Sampson.
Yeah, Will Sampson, I had the opportunity to meet him years ago at the American Indian Film Festival in San Francisco. I met him and everything, but I wasn't around him that much. But obviously, his career, his life was short, but his impact on, film in terms of being one of the people who went for today's actors, native actors and actresses. But he is an amazing person. I found out things I didn't know about him in terms of him being an artist and, kind of a rodeo person, and just how he ended up in film. And it was kind of amazing to learn more about him. Joe Delacruz, another person no longer with us. I mean, Joe was a very passionate, leader and a real fighter on a wide range of issues. And so again, it was good to see his tribe, the Trudell tribe, a number of them being here just to really appreciate them being recognized. Then the other honorees, the 4 of us. Yourself, Mark, Wesley Soko, Lenado, and then myself, each one of our stories, I guess, and the fact we all know each other. So it says something about our age. But, it's they've done some amazing, people have done some amazing things. I mean, looking at Leslie Silko, who is a good friend, and I had mentioned we started law school together. As she was in law school for a year and a half and dropped out. She was on the dean list when she dropped out. But the rest of us were struggling to stay in law school. But her career, she was meant to write. And I think when she dropped out of law school, that's what she did. She did it very well. I think Lenada, I had met her when they occupied Alcatraz. And that event, to me, was the beginning of this, all the activism that was going on in the 60s and the early 70s, things were going to be changed. It's going to be changed, and the occupation of Alcatraz started it. In deference to AIM, AIM did some good things as well, but it was really the occupation of Alcatraz that set things in motion. And I think we were better off for it because it woke up the country about Indian affairs and the treatment of the tribes literally on a national basis. Yourself, I've followed your career as a journalist, and it's very enjoyable to watch Indian country today evolve, in the media, not only hard front, but being able to see people on a weekly basis on TV. And so anyway, it was a lot of fun last night, and looking forward to next year and to see who else is considered to be an inductee.
How important is it that we know these stories?
I think it's very important. I think that the importance of oral history, we're probably not doing enough of it. I know some tribes are doing certain things for certain tribal leaders. I had the privilege of participating in the oral history project for Senator MLA. And after he had passed, and I think they interviewed roughly 100 people from different walks of life in his life, and be they military people, business people, politicians, and there were 3 Native people that were interviewed. And it was kind of a privilege to do that. We need to do those types of things as well, in terms of really kind of capturing their memories. I mean, one example, for instance, is the boarding school situation. I know that there's attention being given to it, but we'll see where it goes in terms of really preserving that memory, and it should never disappear. Because when you stop and think, basically the oppressors were the federal government, and the various religious denominations. Obviously, the Catholic Church is what we think of most. Yeah, and we're not really kind of driving the direct agenda to address, the impact of, or the impact that it had on kids or people who had the experience. So we've got a ways to go, but I'm glad they're giving it attention, and to some extent the federal government will give it attention with, I guess, the bill that was introduced in the Senate to really kind of establish some kind of committee to address the impact of boarding school. But I think tribes, those who get involved, have to come up with a question, or the question to them, well, what do you want? In terms of how do you, address the problem, just not going around the country listening to these kind of horrific stories about the experience of the boarding school. But that's just one area, and obviously we've got a lot of other issues via water, which affects every tribe in terms of how their rights are quantified, and they develop the management capability. I mean, you should have domestic needs, agriculture needs, enterprise needs. I mean, you do nothing without water. So that's a big issue. And I think for those in the technology world, I mean, dealing with AI, I don't know much about it, but I'm curious about it and how it's going to impact tribes in a favorable way and in a negative way. Whether we like it or not, it's there, and we need to embrace it and try to figure it out.
Last question. Think about the whole scope of the Hall of Fame, not just last night, but some of you mentioned, 33 people. So maybe start and repeat the question.
Well, it's kind of amazing because during my career, I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, I mean, when I looked at the list and faces, wow, I mean, I had the opportunity to be around them and the opportunity to work with many of them, or to participate in meetings with them, and it was always a pleasure. But disciplines across the board. I mean, academics, lawyers, or just people who just had leadership skills. Kind of the social area stuff, and so it was a lot of fun to have a broad view of people that have ended up in the Hall of Fame and will certainly be there, some others in the future and everything. But it's an important thing for us to capture those memories, share them with the younger population, so they can put a face on some of the things that these people were responsible for. And so it's an exciting venture, and I wish them the best, and hopefully more tribes and corporate entities, foundation, whoever, support the effort or support them.
Speaking of Indigenous excellence, since 1995, Stanford University has honored distinguished alumni through its Multicultural Hall of Fame. This year, Navajo citizen Aaron Yazzie was selected for the award. The NASA engineer graduated from the university in 2008 and has since gone on to not only send objects to other planets, but to inspire leagues of young people. Our anchor Aaliyah Chavez sat down with him to learn more about his journey.
So I've been working at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory as a mechanical engineer and then now a systems engineer for the past 15 years. And I've been able to serve on roles on some predominant Mars missions while I've been there. So I worked on the Curiosity rover that landed in Mars in 2012. I was able to work on the InSight lander, which landed on Mars in 2018. I worked on the Perseverance rover. I was the lead engineer that built the drill bits for that rover that's currently on Mars, gathering samples from Mars that we hope to bring back to Earth to be able to study it and look for signs of ancient microbial life on Mars. And so currently I'm working Mars Sample Return, the mission that is working to bring those samples back. So those are the highlights of my career, which are sort of the flagship missions that NASA has been working on in the recent past. The drill bits have been really successful. It's been one of the most thrilling things is to be able to see us gather these samples one by one, the parts that I built, the drill bits, doing their job successfully. We have currently gathered about 19 samples on Mars, and we're gonna keep gathering more until we can grab up to about 42 sample tubes, and then we're working to bring 30 of them back. So. Yeah, it's been really fun seeing, especially like the images when they come back, like seeing something that I once held in my hands, like a picture coming back from Mars. It's really cool.
Here at Stanford, other Indigenous alumni have also made significant contributions in this field. Last year, Wailaki astronaut Nicole Mann became the first ever Native American woman in space. She lived aboard the flying laboratory called the International Space Station and even completed a spacewalk.
Yeah, I was so thrilled to learn about Nicole Mann and her historic mission to the ISS. And especially because she's a Native woman, and that's something that I feel like needs to be shared more. Like when I'm working at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a majority of the natives that are working there are women engineers, and so it's really cool to see them represented in that way. I think it's a really big step forward, not only for our Indigenous community, but also women in STEM.
Aaron also reflected on what being inducted into the Multicultural Hall of Fame means to him.
I think it is really touching and meaningful for me to be chosen for this award. When I was here at Stanford, I didn't see myself getting to the point where I'd be somebody that would receive a plaque that would go onto that wall. I couldn't even really see it. It was uncertain if I thought I would be able to graduate because I came from a very small town from a small public high school, which did a great job of giving me my basic education, but coming here was a whole new ball game of like a different level of learning, a fast-paced learning with a bunch of brilliant people around you. And so I had a lot to do to catch up, and it didn't feel while I was here that I was thriving, that I was the person that was going to be able to go far. And it was a bunch of little things that helped boost my confidence, like being a leader in ACES, the Stanford ACES club. Going to get internships. I had an internship at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center while I was at Stanford, and another one at NASA Glenn Research Center. So having these NASA internships while I was a student made me understand, wow, I'm existing at NASA. I'm doing the work being asked of me, and it's not too difficult for me. And not only that, but I think I'm actually good at it. And so that's what really boosted my confidence. I came back and every year just got better and better as a student. By the time I graduated, I even dared to attempt to apply to a NASA position, and I got it. And so that, looking back and being reflective of where I was then and now receiving this award, it feels unreal, and I keep trying to say I don't deserve this, but also I can also reflect and be honest and see that I put in a lot of work, and I'm very happy that I was able to get this award. See, I'm hoping that students who maybe were like the kind of student that I was. People who come from a small community, come from a community where not a lot of people are on the path that you're currently on, can feel supported and know that other people have not only have gone through this before them, but also there's people, their peers, that are going alongside with them. And I always say too that just also reflect on all the people that are watching you as you go along your journey. Like, they see you as a role model, and understanding that like the youth are looking up to you is a really big motivation tool. It was a big motivation for me. And so don't be discouraged about the big dreams that seem unattainable. Like, I always encourage, just like I said, I never imagined that I would end up at NASA, or I never imagined I would end up on the Multicultural Hall of Fame wall. It's because I didn't dream big enough. And I always tell Native students, just dream bigger.
Previous inductees into Stanford's Multicultural Hall of Fame include former Heisman Trophy winner Jim Plunkett and U.S. Senator Cory Booker, among others. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.